Hi, everyone. I have to share with you. I'm absolutely pleased today. In 2019, the first time I addressed Miguel, I was dreaming about Algarve like this, right? An Algarve like this, because my heart belongs to Ilha do Farol and will always belong. So I always see Algarve from the sea view, so from the perspective of the sea. And I always thought, okay, is there a day that I will maybe be able to move? It didn't arrive yet, but today, after 3,000 kilometers from Copenhagen to here, I must share that what I'm seeing here is just absolutely amazing, and is what, as we saw from the now, because the never is not here anymore, as we saw from the now, we can see an ecosystem that is thriving, that is growing, that has an amazing amount of opportunities to explore, but that there's also a lot that can achieve in the following years. And as I had the opportunity to design and develop the strategic plan of Algarve Tech Hub 3-4 years ago, if I remember properly, and to present it in the first edition of Algarve Tech Hub Summit, I bring today a critical perspective of how do I see the following opportunities that we have for the next years. And that doesn't mean necessarily that we need to follow step by step or that we need to ignore everything that has been done, because what has been done is amazing. But I truly believe what I bring here today is the possibility to scale, exactly as Joaquin was mentioning in the end. So from sunlight to sovereignty. My idea here is that Algarve's potential within the EuroStack context can not only address critical infrastructures for the country, but also set up a different bunch of opportunities by exploring these natural resources that Algarve has that not so many regions have in the rest of Europe, and therefore promoting a set of calls or answering to a set of calls that actually comes with Draghi report in 2024 related to competitiveness European gap. So in 2024, Draghi calls for nothing less than a European deal, relying on a set of different funding strategies and fundamentally supported by a set of conclusions that the report brings. Europe lags 30% on GDP compared to the US, and as a 70% gap explained by lower productivity, which is mostly related with the economic activities that it focuses and the type of technologies that invests. So what we're talking about is that we do have a set of technology areas where we depend a lot from the outside, and particularly related to supply chain risk. So the support and all the infrastructures and critical infrastructures that are behind these technologies are mostly based in the US and Asia and not in the EU. So as a result of that, a set of EU tech firms called for what is classified as the EuroStack to cut the reliance on the US and China. This is March 24. Don't forget that in April 2025, in April 2025, we have the very well-known Iberian blackout, which is also related to critical infrastructures, and I go slightly a little bit afterwards. But in September 2025, at the State of the Union speech from Ursula von der Leyen, the main point was digital sovereignty, which can answer to the competitiveness gap and therefore design the necessary infrastructures to comply with the need to make sure that Europe has or recovers its sovereignty by the technological strategy that should employ. So the question is, what is the EuroStack and how does this work? If you look at it, it looks quite obvious. So relies on critical resources, raw materials, energy, and water. And then from that, builds upon all the infrastructures necessary to answer to the needs that we have as companies and startups on digital technologies. So structure of chips, networks, Internet of Things and devices, IoT, mostly cloud, software, and data and artificial intelligence on the top as a result, or the capacity to make sure that all these infrastructures answer to the need of providing these services. So within the EuroStack, what is mostly discussed is how do we promote this within the European boundaries, if we want to call. So first of all, by making sure that the stack itself is EU controlled at the digital level, so the infrastructures behind energy, chips, cloud, AI, data, and so on are actually in the European territory, that European legal headquarters are actually where this, that most of the companies of these companies are based in Europe and their legal headquarters are actually in Europe, that we have majority of the investment in R&D is also European, and that we don't have an extra European corporate control. So this means that we need to create new companies based in Europe that are able to answer these and not rely on American and Asia, even though I don't have anything against, okay? So just we're talking about strategy and competitiveness, right? So then, this obviously also demands a set of legal instruments and also standardization, mostly focused on supporting the European critical infrastructures. So in the end, the logical behind is that EuroStack transforms Europe's dependency into a federation where each region contributes to a piece of sovereignty. And that's exactly how Algarve can see itself, as a region that can also promote that piece of sovereignty. So basically, we know by the most recent strategic document from tourism of Algarve that we do represent 4.8% of national GDP, 80% is mostly related with services. We do have an amazing inflow of people nowadays that are coming, and some are staying, as my wife. Oh, well, actually moved back, but she stayed at the beginning. And also, we now have, as we noticed, a tremendous growth of ICT companies in the region that comes from an amazing development over these years. So the thing is, and we also know this, that we do have a tremendous strengths related to the region, related to access to natural resources, development of renewables, and unique characteristics in Europe. But we do face some challenges when it comes to water scarcity, as we mentioned, and which is essential for these infrastructures. And we still have low numbers of R&D absorption, which is also one of the key things that Joaquin was mentioning for what is desired for the future, which is making sure that these new startups can keep growing and so absorb all this R&D that is developed within the University of Algarve, but also that comes from other instruments. However, there's one fundamental point here, is that all these resilience infrastructures that Algarve that we were discussing that are necessary, has been one of the key points of foreign direct investment in the region. So we are talking about renewable energy firms that bring power infrastructures on solar power. We're talking about the fact that Europe, but also Portugal, but also Algarve, tops on the top 3 of regions and companies with the highest renewable mix. We're talking about the installation of storage batteries, and we are also talking about the project of desalination, which is actually fundamental for what I'm talking about. So the point here is that from the typical tourist region that as Algarve has been seen so far, can actually keep that, but become the tourist tech region, which is obviously the goal of all these summits and also the previous work that has been done. But the point here is to understand how these connections can be done to infrastructures, which is one of the most relevant things and also one of the most relevant weaknesses that is raised when we're talking about Algarve. And therefore, we can use the EuroStack as a way to look of, okay, how could we bring some sort of MVPs in these infrastructures to the region and comply with what is designed as the beginning of this the implementation of the EuroStack. Faro and Portimão is just an example when I'm talking about Algarve opportunities. But some of these examples, Green Cloud Infrastructure, GaiaX Data Commons, AJI Nodes, Open Mobility Stack, Digital Entity, I have 2 minutes, okay. Digital Identity Layer, are just some of the MVPs that are launched by the EuroStack report in order to establish possible processes of defining what is the investment necessary for the minimum viable product. And these options, these opportunities can easily be connected to what we talk about, what we need in the region. I'm thinking about the Mediterranean Data Commons, Tourism plus Climate and Mobility, which is also something that I know Innova 3.0 Algarve is working on. Solar-powered and saltwater sovereignty data. So I can give you the example of Australia, where some of these data centers have been using salt water to actually avoid to extract water from the network. So basically ensuring that the impact or the environmental impact is mitigated, even though the economic development and innovation development maintains or actually rises. So, and then we just listened about water management, which is also one of the fundamental key solutions that we need to work on in the region, also to promote scalability and internationalization, because at the moment that we can solve our problems in this region, we will also be able to solve the problems of other regions within the European context. And finally, we still need to be realistic, right? So I will not spend too much time on this because this is work to do for the future, but we need to keep in mind that we need municipalities to be engaged in these type of strategies, especially for these type of infrastructures. We need to push forward, as we are doing, and quite well. We need to keep pushing on public-private partnerships for these type of infrastructures. We need to keep push forward for the digital solutions on teaching and education from the University of Algarve, particularly in English teaching. And we need to keep push forward on storage integration and desalination for the region to make sure that we have the infrastructure necessary to attract the investors that can bring these type of infrastructures. So to finish, the suggestion and the proposal is basically, we have been talking about the triple helix models until now, right? And that's something that we also worked on in the strategic plan at the beginning. But these 4 pillars should be what holds for the future when it comes to strategic critical infrastructures to the region, and to take advantage of particularly the investment part of it, where we can include, as it was mentioned, we can include some of the housing policies and social policies behind. I will not spend too much time on this, but this is just to give you an idea of where we should look in terms of funding. So Digital Euro Programme is one of the fundamental ones. We're backing EuroStack. The MFF 2834 is the European budget, which already establishes all these instruments that we can use. And then obviously, and was already mentioned by Joaquin as well, Horizon and some cohesion funds as Algarve 2030, which is also part of these pillars of investment. So I need to leave you, but I also want to leave an idea that I always ask ChatGPT in the end. I did the same in 2022 to give us let us a message, just because I was testing at that time. It was at the beginning, and now it's just to keep the tradition. So Algarve Sunlight can power data, its connectivity can carry sovereignty, and its people can prove that Europe's next frontier is not somewhere else, it's right here and now. So thank you very much from Farol to here.